forgot my line.
That's a good job.
No.
It's a good start.
So
We're here.
well, don't ruin this.
Oh, God.
What's going on, YouTube? Back at you again. This is Sam. As you guys know, she was on the podcast. When was that?
That
on
was
the podcast on the YouTube.
He's doing good today. It was good that we had you
I've worked
start.
a full 8 hours. Okay, I'm tired. I've had one bell pepper.
It's funny going from restaurant work when you're like, I worked 8 hours today.
I know.
Like, that's normal people's work lives.
Like, dude, I worked 8 hours.
Do you even know what that's
They're like, I do that 5 times a week. You're crazy. When did
6 months ago.
6 months ago, and that was your 1 year
That was my
sober.
1 year.
Yeah. So how you been doing since then?
Great.
Great.
As far as the drinking, well, life's been weird, but
Yeah, I mean, so I left Fogbelt, and she is no longer at Fogbelt either.
Changes.
Lots of big changes. Where's the camera? The camera's here. We look here. That's where we look. So yeah, both big changes. And do you feel like you get like pulled back into wanting to drink all the time still, or do you think it gets better the longer you go?
So once you step away from it, you know, I've been through a lot of shit in the last couple months. Mainly was losing my dog, and then moving, and then kind of everything that went with that. And I knew that once I didn't drink through that I was going to be okay. But I was talking to a friend about being sober, and I made the comment that I still, every single day, like when I think about it, like I still just want to get fucked up. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that and know that that exists, and that's definitely a real emotion, instead of just pretending like, oh, I'm immune to alcohol now because I quit and I can, I can do anything.
And I think it is important to note that it's that's my cat. Is that it's different for everybody. Like depending on how it's going to affect you. Like for me, even on my worst days, I don't.
Should we go open the door for him?
Go open the door for him.
Pause.
Oh,
Chicken got it.
Just pull him in the room. Pumpkin! No!
Oh, he's being a bad kid.
Get him. Pick up the whole tube. What a bad pumpkin.
I love pumpkin.
He's a bad pumpkin. He bitches to get inside the room, and then you open the door.
He's like,
no!
I just want it open.
So,
anyway, we're back.
So, sorry, that was my cat screaming to get in the room. What I was saying is that even on my worst days, I don't ever have the urge or the pull to drink anymore. Like that part has left me. Like I don't. It's never something that comes in. And I was like, oh God, I wish I could drink now, because I think for so long, like years now, I've just kind of been, I wash that over my brain. That fact that alcohol will never make any situation better for me. It'll never fix the problem. Anything that feels good about it will go away immediately. I'll be hit with a tidal wave of shame. It will mess everything up, and everything I like about my new life, it is the antithesis to that. It is the acid to that. It breaks that all down.
And there's no such thing as like, you think about, you're like, oh, okay, I broke it, I relapsed, we had just the one, like that doesn't count. Once you've broken it, I think it spirals, because then you're back in.
Yeah,
you're back
totally.
in, you're back under the control of it, and you have to go all the way back through, that's...
I know, because some people might have the ability to slip up and then be like, whoa, that was a mistake, and keep going on and be like, yep.
Treat it like an isolated incident rather than...
But for me, it was always like, nope, I need to do a hard reset. Like, if I fuck up, then I'm going to fucking, take advantage of this fuck up, and fuck up for a little while, even though, it's weird how much you end up kind of just lying to yourself and, or even just... bartering with yourself.
Oh yeah.
And being
the weird negotiations you'll make.
Well, so I'll just drink till the end of this week. But then something comes up, there's always something that
next day, the day after, you're always like, well, but then there's that. And then then there's that guy's birthday party, and then it's Christmas.
That's why, like, even with the tasting of, like, why I never did taste of it at the brewery was that, like, if I tasted a little bit, I knew I could taste, and then I could, like, maybe drink a little more one time and a little more, and then maybe one time I'd just be having a beer, and then it's like, now I just drink again.
Right.
And, like, I stopped doing this for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still do, just because I do the sips, because everyone's is different, and it's very important to say that, because when I started just doing the sips, it was just to know about Fog Belts beer, and then some of my friends drink nice wines, and I've actually found myself saying no thank you more often than yes, you know, like, it's not me cheating myself. I have a very clear understanding that I genuinely love Zinfandels and Pinot Noirs, and if my friend opens a $150 bottle of Pinot Noir, I would very much so like to just taste it, because I do love the flavors. But I don't find myself, like, slipping up. I don't find myself wishing, like, for me, I think it was more helpful, because instead of pining after this mystery flavor, you know, like, oh, I remember that flavor was so good, I wish I could just have it, and then slipping up, by having the little sips, I think it pacifies it, reminding me that, like, oh, it's really not that good. It's not good enough to ruin my life over. It's just good enough for a sip with a nice steak, and then, you know, we move along in our day.
And that's very subjective, you know. That's
yep. And that's where, you know, we're different. We're very different, as are whoever, you know, as you're watching this. You are going to be different. You're going to have a different set of rules that you need to come to an agreement and be very honest with yourself what your guidelines are.
I mean, there have been people that I've met that were like, oh, no, I don't drink. And, like, they never drink. And then, like, once in a blue moon, like, they'll be having a beer, and then that'll be it. Like, you never see them drink again. And they're like, yeah, like, every once in a million years, like, I'll have a drink, but that's it. And but that's their thing. You know what I mean? It's
really impressive.
And that's where I think the danger comes in, is when you're trying to leave it alone, Stan.
It's in my way. I want my foot right there.
Is when you're trying to run around and tell everyone else how like, what defines sobriety and, like, what their sobriety is. Ultimately, you just need to be honest with yourself, and you know that if you're the person that you're going like, oh, I just take a sip, but then you're, like, trying to have, like, 1,000 sips to catch a buzz, like, then you're lying to yourself. It's not like, oh, I had a sip of wine, and then a month later I had, like, a sip of beer, and then a month and a half later I had a sip of wine again, and I never felt anything, and I did it purely for taste. If you have that kind of, like, willpower and fortitude, and that works for your sobriety levels, and you're not lying to yourself, fucking go for it, you know?
But the moral is...
But I know for me, it was the effect. I wanted the effect. Like, the taste...
You didn't care about the flavors.
Was secondary. I mean, I cared, but... Oh, it's like if you're starving, you know? Like, you care about the flavor secondary. You want the sustenance, you know?
Right.
So you don't really care what the fuck you're eating. If you're starving, you're just going to eat. So, like, I was craving alcohol. Like, I had drank vanilla extract before because it was 10% alcohol, you know? And I was like, yeah, but it's fucking disgusting. But it was like, it was the alcohol, you know?
Right.
And, you know, you see shows where people were drinking, like, Listerine bottles and rubbing alcohol and all this stuff because they've, like, hidden all the booze. And thankfully I never ended up doing any of that stuff. But the point remains the same, you know? So
I think the underlying thing 100% though is the honesty with yourself, you know? Like, it doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter what he thinks, it doesn't matter what other people think of what you're doing. If you in your heart and you are comfortable with the decisions you're making, and you can look yourself in the eye and say, I, like, honor my feelings and all that, you know, that's what you're looking for.
I would say though that, like, especially in the beginning, I would focus on just, like, not trying to, because the very beginning, the whole idea is that you're now trying to strike a harmonious balance with alcohol, and that was the problem in the first place. You couldn't do that. You know, like, you've already tried striking a harmonious balance with alcohol many times, and you keep going down this road. So although I think that, you know, there are people that can hit these agreements with themselves and stay true to them, I think that there's potentially more damage that will come from people being like, well, I'm going to see if I can do that, you know, and then they just keep I'm like, just try a life without alcohol first. See if you like that.
Because I think my first 3 months, because that's what I'd read numerous times, is if you can go the first 3 months and you don't find that your life is better, then, you know, make your decision after that. But for the first 3 months, I was super strict. There was no sips, no taste, no nothing. It was just...
If you've been sober for 3 months and nothing has improved, I don't think you're, like, trying at all. Like, what have you...
Yeah.
Like I've said, like, it's
but that's some people, that's how they live their life, you know? They just wait for good things to happen. They're like, well, I quit drinking, so now what? It's like, well, what have you been doing?
You can't just... I stopped drinking and sit in a room and be... Like,
wait for the love of your life to buy you a house.
Yeah, it's like, no shit, that sucks. You're not doing anything. Go do something. You wanted to touch on...
you even said the word already.
Shame?
Yep. I have been thinking about it, and, you know, I kind of want to bring up what I think was one of the hardest parts for me when I think about why it was so hard to quit drinking. And I think shame is a big emotion, and it's something that no one wants to talk about because, you know, of what it is. You're prone to doing things under the influence of alcohol that you probably wouldn't brag about to a lot of people. And I think one of the things that keeps you in the loop and keeps you under, you know, alcohol's thumb. Jesus fuck. Is shame. So you've done something last night. Now you're ashamed of it. You wake up in the morning. You feel like shit. What is your course of action? You know?
It's the cause and the cure. You know, where it's like, let's say you go out, you get wasted, you end up, I don't know, making a fool of yourself at the bar, or sleeping with someone, or like, I don't know, pulling your fucking tits or dick out at the bar or something. You feel like just a fool. Like, you feel ashamed of yourself. And so then, rather than feeling and processing that emotion and being like, wow, I need to, like, fix some stuff about myself, you go, how do I stop feeling this immediately? Because I can't sit with this feeling. It. So you just like, I'm just gonna drink. I'm gonna drink or smoke or do some other drugs, you know, and run away from it. And because that you still have not processed it.
Yep. And
you've
so
just been like, nope, I have to avoid this.
As you go to quit drinking, every single time you have decided that you're going to keep drinking instead of facing the shame, now all of those have piled up. And now when you quit drinking, they all slowly come back to you. And so you don't drink, and you spend the first month, 2 months, 3 months, year and a half, remembering the fucked up shit you did, the shit that you swear you won't tell a soul, the stuff that you will bring to your grave because...
If you're lucky, you blacked out most of it.
Hopefully you don't remember it, but...
I mean, I remember some stuff, but I blacked out
I remember some stuff, and I'm not overly proud of a lot of it, but I'm not a hypocrite by saying, you know, like, drinking makes you do bad things and drinking turns you into the wrong person, you know, like, it doesn't make you a bad person to acknowledge that drinking was the cause of these things. Like, you're not a bad person because you made the bad decisions. You're a bad person if you keep doing them and you keep harming yourself and others.
Yeah, and it's like, it's even if alcohol was the driving force, you know, like how they say, like, it's not an excuse if you were drunk. It's like, yes, but at the same time, like, you did those things because you were drunk. It does not absolve you of guilt, right?
Right.
But it does put into perspective, like, I would not have done these things had I not been drinking. And then so you have to go back further and go, okay, well, where's the responsibility again? And then it's like it goes back to the beginning of like, well, I chose to drink that night and then I chose to continue to drink. And your judgment is always skewed because once you've had one drink, you're no longer the sober version of yourself making decisions. You are one drink that person. And then you have another drink and now you're two drink that person.
Right.
And it gets, you know, it's very exponential. By the time you're at 4 drinks, you're gonna, you know, it's a
you're just gonna carry on. And because no drink Sam versus 4 drink Sam has 2 very different ideas of how
of what fun
I
is
want
and
the
what's
night
acceptable.
to go.
Yeah. But I think along with the shame and like growing and moving past that is the forgiveness. And the way I look at it is that we all have shame. We all have things that we have done that we hate ourselves for, that we think back to, and it makes us cringe. Like it elicits a physical response from us where we're just like, oh my God, I can't believe
I wish I just
that.
Go back and punch myself before I, like.
And that's the thing is that, like, people listening to us right now, they can relate with that experience because everyone has
every single.
So it's like,
even sober, I still have the feelings.
Yeah.
It's really important to remember that, like, you have these feelings and they're because of alcohol, but it's not going to go away. Shame doesn't go away. Shame isn't just like specific to alcohol. So one of the very important, very first steps you have to do is you have to be able to look at all your ugly and all your dirty parts and all the monsters and all the demons, and you have to look at all of them and accept them and decide what's worth keeping and what's worth forgiving and changing and letting go of. Because you're not going to get rid of that shame ever. Shame is so real.
I was just talking to, it was Rachel and Zach, about like my drinking and everything, and how I was, gonna take my own life that day, and then I decided to, go this route and admit I was an alcoholic, and I had no idea that it was the beginning of my entire life, but that I was like, I chose to completely rebuild myself. I chose to be like, who is it that I want to be? And I will just construct that, because who I am now, I fucking hate. And I was like, there are no rules to this. Like, if you want to, like, change all of it, And that's what I ended up doing. And in part of doing that is letting go of all that old shit. Because the way that I look at it, I look through a lot of things through the lens of mortality, right? And the lens that everything is very temporary and fleeting. All these things that we're going through, all the struggles that we have, it's like you could look at that and be like, well, then why get sober if all of this stuff happens, And for me, the reason is because I want to enjoy as much of the life, of this life that I can, And I found that I get more enjoyment and enrichment out of my life by not being fucked up.
Right.
And so that's why I choose not to be fucked up. I choose to not do that stuff
Life's
anymore.
too short to be running away all the time. And that's what drinking is. Drinking is just me running away from this.
And I'll never accomplish any of my goals or any of my dreams if I'm drunk, because being drunk, it just allows me to be comfortable with not doing anything, with not achieving anything.
You're so fucking docile and complacent.
Yeah,
just like,
and it's like you just go to the bar and say what's up to the same people.
And then you think
one
about...
by one, they all die, and,
how many of those people you don't even really like?
Or really know.
At all.
So, yeah, so that's why it's... you got to forgive yourself. You got to forgive yourself and move on and realize that, no matter what you did, unless you're, a fucking child murdering pedophile.
There's a few things
you
that...
can burn in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can be ashamed of, and, it sucks, but you can forgive yourself and move on and just be like, yeah, I made a mistake and I'm ashamed of it, but if you don't learn from it, then it was totally in vain. But if you learn from it and you never did it again, it was beneficial.
You're allowed to move forward.
Yeah. These videos, I try not to have go as long as our podcast. I try to keep these a little shorter, and this is getting right around
20 minutes?
20 minutes, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. That's what we wanted to talk about.
Very, a little bit more condensed,
But I like our long ramblings.
I like our long... Well, we can talk more.
Well, they do. I don't know if you guys know that we do the podcast. It's not released yet at all. There's 7 of them. But
Time Enough at Last.
They're all on this guy's computer.
One day when we get enough time at last.
We'll have time to...
We'll put them on. In fact,
literally just upload them.
Why don't you just take my computer home and you do it?
You do it. Because we're waiting for the sounds. We want the noises.
We're getting stuff built.
So that's why we did the video. Give you guys a little treat, a little smackle or something before the other. But
quick update: more ink. Chop the beard short. Chop
I left
the
my
hair.
skin on the soccer field.
Yes, that's not a birthmark, people.
I love it. It's so pretty.
She got that tattooed on you, actually.
I have a different soccer tattoo idea.
I mean, like the rug burn. Anyway, okay.
It's turf burn.
This is Sam. You guys remember her. I'm Kyle. Thank you for watching.
Be kind to yourselves.
Be kind to yourselves. And,
you got it. You can do it.
At night.
Mm.
Okay.